This conference will now be recorded.
All right, awesome. Welcome, everybody. And I did get a lot of emails this morning of people saying they couldn't make it, but they look forward to watching the recording later, which people have gotten more and more used to doing that so they can watch it at their leisure. So just the typical housekeeping, I think everybody knows it by now. You've got a little mute button in your bottom left to click. Please stay muted unless you want to ask a question. There's also chat at the top right. There's a little chat button. You can type something in there. And always email me anytime. We've been putting all our videos on YouTube. Rob, our public information officer, is turning our videos into. So we actually have like a YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and type in Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth and then PARB, all of the trainings that I've at least recorded should be on there. So just FYI. And so with that, I'm excited today to have Maghan Ruark, who's over permanency and court improvement. And like she told me one time, she wakes up and goes to bed every night thinking about how to improve, permanency for kids in the child welfare system every day, which is cool because that's what we're trying to do with PARB. It's trying to, help move the ball forward and help make sure kids get what they need and they get their life resolved as soon as possible. So, and she's also a Canadian County PARB member, which that's exciting too. Hey, Karen, welcome. So with that, hand it over to you, Maghan, and you've got the clicking ability there too. So
awesome. Thanks, Keith. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. And for those of you who might be watching this as a recorded video, so glad that you took the time to review this. As Keith said, I love permanency. It is something that I've always been involved in with my time within the agency. So any chance that I get to be able to talk about permanency, I always look forward to that. So I'm here today to talk about principles of permanency, and more importantly, how we can all work together, all entities involved within the child welfare system to improve outcomes for children who are in DHS custody. So I'm going to be hitting on a couple of projects and different things that the department has implemented, outcomes that we have seen with that, and just give you guys an overall kind of general view of where we stand today as far as the children who are in custody and where we hope to go. So if anytime you guys have questions, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, but it's a small group. Please feel free to unmute and ask a question if you think of something. So the first thing I want to go over with you guys, let me get this going here. So real quick, just what are the principles of permanency? So you guys are PARB. When we're looking at cases, the big three, as we like to call them, for the things that we're looking at are safety, permanency, and well-being. So ensuring that we are assessing safety throughout the duration of the case from the moment we make contact with the family up until case closure. Permanency, we have a federal expectation for all permanency goals: adoption, guardianship, and reunification. Those are set in place so that consistently each state is trying to achieve permanency within the same timely fashion. And then well-being, so we have our safety in trying to get to permanency, but we're also making sure that the child's behavioral needs and any medical needs are being met through assessments, monthly contacts, service referrals, and delivery. So that's a big thing too, because as we know, ensuring the child's well-being is also going to contribute to their safety and then also their permanency outcomes. The more stability we see with these children and youth, the quicker that they achieve their outcomes in their placements. So I always like to just kind of share some data to kind of set the stage with you all to let you know currently where we're at with children who are in foster care, based on outcomes, and then also just some ages and different things that we kind of break out. What I have for you today is our core strategy data. The report periods were October of 2020 and then most currently of April 2021. So comparatively, I'll show you guys where we were in October of 2020, that final date that data was pulled compared to April of this year. So what you see on your screen is the children who exited care by exit type. As you can see, the pie chart, adoption is in the blue at 40.6%, reunification at 46.2%, guardianship is green, 7%, child aged out, 4.6%, and then we have a small category of other exit types. It's very small, and that just means it was hard to determine from the data run exactly what transpired with those exits. As you can see, if you look down, so that first box was from October of 2020. If you look at the next one, that was our more current data in April of 2021. We dropped significantly from the number of children exiting to adoption from 40.6% to 32.9%. And as you can see for reunification, the red areas, we went from 46.2% to 49.6%. Also notable is guardianship exits. We went from 7.0% to 9.2%. And then unfortunately, we did see an increase in the number of youth aging out, 4.6% to 6.0%. Now, there's a couple of different things going on here. You know, in October of 2020, we were, you know, several months into the pandemic. April of 2021, we were over a year. What we're seeing in our data is that we have a lot of children who are not exiting to adoption because of the process, and it's a lot that's involved with court. So to get to adoption, you have to file for termination of parental rights. You then have to have the jury trial. The child has to become legally free. They have to enter into a trial adoption before the adoption can be finalized. So a lot of different things that goes through that court process. We looked at this and broke it down and did an analysis, and there was a lot of court hearings and things like that that unfortunately were delayed because of COVID. We were able to do a data poll for court continuances and look at how many of those continuances stated something related to COVID. It was a very overwhelming number. So we are assuming that this is why we're seeing, you know, this many children and decrease of going to adoption. I will note, though, that even before COVID, the number of children exiting to adoption versus reunification, it was flip-flopping. Before, we saw more children exiting to adoption than we did reunification, and then it switched. We were seeing more kids exiting to reunification than adoption, and the spread was getting larger. So, you know, we usually hovered between, you know, 46% over here, 45% over here, and it's spreading. But this spread right here that you see for the bottom one, this is the largest spread that we've seen, but again, there's a lot going into this number that's making it so low. So just kind of wanted to share that with you guys. The guardianship increase. What we're seeing there is that two things. DHS has taken the stance over the last year that we should really be exploring all permanency types for children. It's really based on what's best for the family. I have a whole guardianship presentation and spiel that I do. Recently talked to the DA Council a couple weeks ago about guardianships. We are trying to increase the number of guardianships that we do because some families want that compared to adoption, and that's okay. We should really be listening to the family to see what it is that they want. So that's one part. The other part of the guardianship increase, we believe, is that because a lot of families were getting stuck in jury trial, kind of, you know, being postponed or not occurring because of COVID, a lot of families were opting to go through guardianship to do that so that they could, you know, find permanency for the children and exit their involvement with DHS. So either way, whatever their motivating factor was for guardianship, we were pleased to see that increase because the department has put in a lot of resources and time and efforts to increase awareness about guardianships. All right, on this next slide, this is just kind of breaking down for you the number of children. The previous slide was percentages, but sometimes it just kind of helps to see what that number is. So for children who exited to adoption, it was 797 children, reunification, 908, guardianship, only 137. We're really trying to see this go up. Child aged out, 91 kiddos, and then there's that other exits compared to the April data. So you can see here, the 797 dropped down to 619, and this was that very low percentage that we saw for those adoption exits on that pie chart on the previous slide. And then here we have 113 kids that exited or that aged out in that last data run, and that was for April of 2021. So this is the same numbers as the previous slide. It just kind of breaks it out for you. Rather than a percentage, this is the number of children. All right, so one area that we're really focusing on, I mean, we focus on permanency for all children, but we have a specific strategy for youth who are legally free, and those who aren't. You know, the Director Brown or Secretary Brown, he very much is passionate about these youth and making sure that they do not age out. It's one of our true north goals. So I wanted to share this with you guys. Again, you have your October and then your April data. You can see here we have 52% of children who aged out. We had 17% that were adopted, 17% that reunified with their parents, and then 9% who went to guardianship, as opposed to this last most recent data pool. We were up at 56% for those that aged out. We saw another decrease. We went from 17% to 11% who finalized through adoption. We saw an increase for reunification, which is wonderful, and then an increase for guardianship. But again, we think a lot of these influxes in the data, both up and down in percentages, can be contributed to court hearings, termination hearings, and things of that nature. But this is just to kind of show you specifically for youth ages 16 through 18. And again,
A quick question, Megan. I'm just curious. Does child welfare look at aging out as a negative outcome, or is it just a case-by-case basis? I mean, I would think in some there might be, you know, you might, as an older kid comes in, that might be the best option for them, you know?
Yeah, I would definitely say case by case, but overall, our take on it is that we failed in some capacity for that youth. That's, you know, not what we want to see happen. We want to try to get them some sort of a permanency. So yes, for DHS, when we have a child aging out, that hits hard. That means that we did not do everything that we could have done or maybe should have done. So, but unfortunately, despite best efforts, that is the final outcome. But when it does happen, it leaves us all feeling pretty rough about it. So yeah, that's why we have so many designated efforts and strategies to decrease the number of kids who do age out.
It happens a lot whenever they go AWOL too, and they're good at it and they stay gone until they age out. But the problem is that they usually don't have their ID or essential documents and that kind of stuff in that situation, which makes it more difficult for them. And with the cap on the number of social security cards you can get, plus the amount of identification you need, for example, for a real ID, like if you don't have those documents, there's no way you're getting that. You know, you can't start with one to get the next one. So.
Very
Well,
true.
and then I guess guardianship would be, I would think that guardianships would be higher with that age population, because you may not be, I don't know, it might be a school teacher, it might be, I mean, you don't really have to parent if they're 17 about to turn 18, but you do want an adult in their life that's going to be connected to them.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase in guardianship requests come through our programs for approval because they are older and they're like, listen, you know, maybe they've already been adopted and this is their second time in care, and this is what the youth wants, and they feel like this is a better decision for them. So that does happen too. So yeah, I see some things going on in the chat. Is everything good? People just trying to see their screens?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it, Megan.
Okay.
If someone has a question, I'll jump in and make sure it gets asked. But yeah, just trying to look at PowerPoints on smartphones is a little bit challenging.
All right, so on this screen that you guys see, this is again the number of children. The previous screens were percentages, but this shows you the number. So for youth ages 16 to 18 who exited during this time frame, we had equal parts 30 and 30 adoption reunification. We had 91 who were aging out. If you skip down to the most recent data pool, April of 21, we had 22 who exited to adoption, which, okay, court hearings, this is what we talked about. Reunification, and then 113 that exited to, or that aged out. So going back to, you know, kind of your question, Keith, yeah, this doesn't leave us feeling very good about these youth. So hopefully, as we continue with our strategies, we'll try to figure out maybe some solutions to some of these barriers to finding permanency for the youth. Okay.
And Megan, I don't know if you want to wait on questions till the end, but Barbara was wondering about how much training workers get on OPSA.
Training on OPSA, quite a bit. It's, you know, so previously last year, OPSA was under permanency. But because OPSA is so huge and we really want to focus and support on these youth, they made OPSA their own program with their own program administrator, their own designated staff to really support and wrap around these youth. So there's a lot of trainings and a lot of different things that staff go through. We've got we call them ticklers, flags, things like that that go off in the child welfare worker's case when things are due, like their plan. If they are getting close to 16, we need to be sitting down. Any strategies, like I said, we have specific strategies for this group of children. We're training them on staffings, things that we need to be talking with the youth about, pooling in connections, what services are available. So yes, we're really trying to make sure our staff are equipped so that they can work these cases like they should be and give these youth support. I don't have a list of all the different OPSA trainings, but there are a lot. So I hope that answers your question.
They also, the OPSA staff emails out to let them know what's left to be completed and what still needs to be completed, because we look at that in our PARB board. Like usually one thing might be missing just to finish the process, but they've done the assessment, the designation, but they didn't do like plan for my future. And so they say on there like which part's completed and which part's still lacking. And I've seen it up to like 3 contacts. We're like, this is our 3rd notice to let you know. So they're aware that they're supposed to do something.
Yes. Great. Okay, thanks, Kazal.
Yeah, no problem.
So you heard me kind of talk about how sometimes court hearings can impact timely permanency. You know, DHS, we're one entity. There's also service provision. There's just many different things that contribute to a child's permanency and their outcomes. We partnered with the Court Improvement Program for a joint project. It was several years ago, I want to say almost 4 or 5 years ago, as part of their strategic plan, the Court Improvement Program. Their job and their responsibility is to oversee projects and things like that with different state agencies to improve outcomes for different populations of children and families who are involved with the child welfare system. For this project, it was to, their goal and their focus was to improve timely reunification rates, specifically within 12 months, as that is the federal standard for achieving reunification. the way they were going to do this was to actively engage court partners to get their buy-in, to hear from them, and to work jointly with DHS leadership to identify action plans and things like that that the judges would like to implement within their courtrooms to hopefully increase timely reunification. So they had a specific cohort of children that they were going to look at and to measure, and those were the children who were removed between October of 17 through March of 2018. So any child removed within that 6-month time frame, they would follow and track to see if they achieved timely reunification by 12 months. So what this means is if our last child was removed March 31st of 2018, we wouldn't be able to analyze these outcomes until March of 2019 because we would want to see if that child achieved permanency within those 12 months. So the jurisdictions that they looked at, and these jurisdictions were pooled, and they were based on outcomes. So DHS provided outcomes of data to the team and said, okay, this is how everyone is performing within their districts. And then the teams got together and decided on a small, a medium, and a large jurisdiction to be part of this pilot. The judges had to consent to this and want to be willing participants for this joint project. The reason why they did a small, medium, and large was to look and see if population size contributed to the outcomes that we would see at the very end. And the reason why they did 3 was to really focus in on those to provide as much support as possible. So that's just kind of setting the stage for what that joint project looked like. So what were the action steps? Well, each jurisdiction analyzed what their barriers were to reunification within 12 months. So what was that? Were they seeing parent engagement was maybe kind of an issue, maybe staffings, getting court orders for reunification if it was prior to the next court hearing, really digging deep and looking at what barriers the court and DHS were seeing jointly together that was prohibiting reunification within 12 months. After they identified those barriers, they came up with action steps. So each team, each jurisdiction team, jointly developed these action steps to identify how are we going to fix this? What are these barriers to permanency? What does that look like? So, for example, in Canadian County, one thing that they came up with is that the court and DHS would have weekly staffings where they could come together, not wait for court, and if they needed a court order for reunification, they were able to talk right then and there with the judge and their court partners to get it. Another example was in Adair County. They identified that parent engagement needed to be really focused, and so what they did was the judge and her court partners, they came up with kind of like baskets to give to the parents that had planners, just anything that they thought might be helpful to engage the parents and keep them engaged in the court process. They also had celebrations. So any type of celebration that they thought might really inspire the parents to keep going, they implemented that in their plan. So the big thing with this is that the deprived courts and DHS were equally responsible. Both entities said, yes, we want to commit to this, we want to see this happen, and they met monthly with the court improvement program staff to circle back around and make sure that these plans were being implemented, action steps completed, so that hopefully they would see some outcomes for the goal. Okay, so like I said, we had our cohort of children that we were going to look at, but we needed it to measure against something, right? So they had their baseline, and that was for children who were removed October of 2015 to March 2016. So same time frame, just a calendar year before the actual cohort, which was October of 16. This was the middle year, and then here was our cohort, this one right here in the orange. So we had our baseline, what was the year after that, and then our cohort right here, again with the same 6-month time frame. So what you can see for our baseline, so for example, region 1 was Canadian County. The percent that was timely was 32.3%. They had a decrease here the next year to 23%. But then for that CIP cohort, we went to 35. So quite a big increase from the previous year compared to that. If you look at Pottawatomie County, we were at 22.6% for the year before and then went to 31.6. Adair County, the baseline was 16.7. The year before it was 0%, but keep in mind, Adair County was our small jurisdiction, so they had a very small population of kids. But then here we are, 42.9%. But if you do look, total children removed, we have 6, 5, and 7, very small. However, look at the total outcome. They did reunify and had 42%. So total outcomes, you know, the previous year we were 19.9 to 25.7. Looking back, one thing that we did kind of talk about was this was such a small population of kids to really kind of measure. Region 1 did have quite a few children removed, 479 for the baseline, 429 for the CIP cohort. Pot County, their baseline was 62 kids and 76. So you're seeing your small, medium, and large. This was to really just see again how we were impacting reunification, no matter what jurisdiction size it was. So overall, each jurisdiction, whether they were small, medium, or large, did see an overall performance increase for those children who were reunified with less than 12 months.
Why was Oklahoma City or in Tulsa not included in that?
I wasn't part of the initial group. From what I know, there were several different factors that they looked at. Oklahoma and Tulsa usually get all the pilots. Anytime we think of a pilot, we always go to Oklahoma and Tulsa. So this was our way and kind of opportunity to focus on maybe some other courts and jurisdictions who don't normally get selected. With Oklahoma and Tulsa, you have multiple judges, so it would be very hard to kind of, okay, are we going to do all 5 or 6 judges, or are we just going to focus on 1 or 2? And if you did that, if you went to Oklahoma County and Tulsa and said, let's pick 2 judges, kind of comparing it to the other judges that didn't have CIP involved, it would just get kind of messy trying to figure that out. So this was just kind of their way to, 1, share the love with pilots and different resources and supports, and 2, it was very clear and concise. We have 1 judge, 1 jurisdiction, 1 district that we're going to focus on.
All right, that makes sense. Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so here we have some more of the CIP joint project outcomes. This right here, this really just kind of broke it out, you know, going back to Region 1, 429 children removed. This was their percent that were timely. Within 12 months, the number that were still in care. If they were in custody or exited less than 8 days, they were taken out, because sometimes what we see with those kids that exit less than 8 days, they maybe went back home, or there was a guardian or some other form of permanency happened, and so that child exited. So we don't count those. Additional permanency within 12 months. So this is really interesting and something that we learned from this project that we have implemented with our ongoing work. If you look at, if our goal is 12 months, if you look at the number of children who exited 13 to 14 months, 23, and then within 15 to 18 months, 10, how many were additional reunification? 7.7, which brought us up to 42. It was this number that exits within 13 to 14 months that really helped show us there's a trend here. So is this our staff maybe not being aware of the 12-month mark within their minds? And so when we're talking about court hearings or getting court orders, we're getting it maybe the month after. Is this, you know, reunification planning, not holding the family meeting timely that's needed prior to reunification? So we use this data to emphasize with our staff, hey, listen, you need to you know, hold those family meetings timely and get the court orders, get everything that you need to, so we don't see such a large number exiting within 13 to 14 months. You know, Region 4, they had 17 that exited after. Region 5, 25. So this just really showed us we had a lot of kiddos that were exiting right after 12 months. And so using this information, we have implemented some efforts to try to eliminate that many children exiting the month after the target of 12 months. All right, so children by age at removal. So you have your years kind of broken out up here. Region 1, they had 32% who were 0 to 1. What really surprised us about this one is that they had 6 to 12 years of age was their highest category overall for Region 1, and Canadian County, which was the large jurisdiction. Same for them. And the reason why this was surprising is that we've done a lot of just efforts and strategies geared towards looking at safety threats for the older kiddos. You know, does the safety threat, you know, is the child vulnerable? Are they a little bit older? So that one was a little surprising to us. For Region 2, not surprising, the 0 to 1 population was their highest number of kiddos who were removed. Region 3, you can see here again, infants are the highest that were removed. Region 4, same, and then Region 5, the same for them as well. So this 6 to 12 here in Region 1 was kind of the outlier, trying to, you know, see what exactly caused that. So, but, you know, what's interesting is that Region 4, while their highest population of kids that they were removing was a 0 to 1 range, for Adair County, which was our small jurisdiction, they had 71%, 6 to 12. So complete opposite of their overall region. So this really was helpful for us looking at trends and things like that that we could learn from and implement in our ongoing and current permanency strategies. Another thing that we really stress for our staff and one of our placement stability strategies is kinship first placement. Reason being, we have seen several, you know, just outcomes and research both at our level and a national level indicating that kinship placements increase a child's likelihood to reunify more timely, because they are with family who are maybe more comfortable facilitating visits in their home, working with the parents, and different things like that. That's not to say we don't have traditional homes that do that, because we do have some great homes. But this is just looking at overall percentage and things like that. We really strive for kinship. So what this is showing you is that children by first placement at removal, Region 1, they've always had a higher rate of kinship placements, and Canadian County specifically had 59% of these kiddos who were in kinship. We wanted to look at this because as we were looking at the overall CIP outcomes, we wanted to know if this kinship could be playing a contributing factor to their outcomes. Potawatomi County, 58% were in kinship. The region though, Region 2, they were about split for traditional and kinship. But Potawatomi County was 20% higher themselves in kinship at first placement. So that tells us a lot of efforts going on there to seek kinship. Region 3, we had traditionally, I guess, more children going to foster care, traditional foster care than we do kinship. Region 4, more going to kinship. Adair County themselves, if you look here, only 14% were going to kinship and 86% going to traditional foster care. So this really was some helpful information for us to see kinship versus traditional foster care. How did that relate or maybe impact overall outcomes? If you remember, Canadian County had one of the highest increases for their population size for permanency within 12 months, and they had the most in kinship placements. So just something to kind of ponder and think about. We wanted to look at some other factors that maybe contributed to the timely permanency. Age out removal, we had, the 0 to 1, 2 to 5, achieved timely permanency, total children, and achieved timely. So if you look here, this is saying that the 6 to 12-year-old category of ages achieved the most timely, which is not surprising because we do have some older children there. But what was surprising was that the youth 13 years and older was the lowest category. They achieved less timely than even our most vulnerable population, who are 0 to 1. So this kind of left us scratching our heads a little bit, trying to figure out how the least vulnerable population, 13 plus, achieved less timely than 0 to 1. So some food for thought and something for us to think about as we just kind of assessed all of the different factors and outcomes from this joint project. Another factor we looked at was previous removals versus first removal. This is the number of children that were on their first removal, and then this is the number of children that had been removed previously. But total achieved about the same. But for the population size, you can see that if it was their first removal, they didn't achieve any faster than what you would think if it was their prior removal. So that one was kind of interesting to see. First placement type, so here we are, 31% achieved timely if they were in kinship versus 22.8% for traditional foster care and then 17.5% for others. So this lended to kind of the conversation about kinship versus traditional foster care and trying to achieve timely permanency. And then another factor is the number of moves a child experiences. We know that if a child's not stable, they're not able to receive the services that they need. If they're moving around, depending on where they're at, are they able to have frequent family time with their family? And so this broke out moves and then achieved timely. So if they had no moves, they achieved timely permanency at 31.8%. 1 move, 24, 2 moves, 19, and so down, which we would expect to see something like this. The more moves they had, the less timely reunification that they achieved. So this is something that we're very cognizant about with our placement stability efforts, really focusing on trying to keep children stable, offering resources and supports to our foster parents, and making sure that we're appropriately identifying needs for children in foster care. All right, so just a few more outcomes for you guys. This is the percentage of children exiting with timely reunification by months to case dismissal. So 1 month in care, 5%, and so we kind of go along this continuum. We saw a spike here at 8 months and then 9 months, and then it kind of trickled down, and then a spike again at 12 months in foster care. We had a person within DHS who does our data. She looked at she called them super timely reunifiers, because we did see a spike around, kind of the 7, 8, 9 month mark. And what was it that contributed to timely permanency? And what she saw was that these super timely people, or children who exited, had everything that they're supposed to have. They had the timely court hearings, they had family meetings with everyone at the table to talk about reunification planning and everything else. So because of all of this research and because of this joint project, we now have a lot of things implemented within our permanency strategies to focus on those things to try to get to timely permanency. Time in care without an adjustment. We have an adjustment that we have to do for time in care. I'm not even going to get into it because it gets a little confusing. But you can see here, this is how many children were, this is how many days, I'm sorry, they were in care. And so you see we get to 12 months and, I'm sorry, these are children. I needed my axes here. This is the number of children. So at 9 months, kind of where we're at, and then we see that spike after 12 months. Many children are in care or exiting in care after that time. So this again shows us we really need to emphasize with staff the importance of 12 months. And then you can see the spike here around the 7, 8, 9 months. This just correlates with this. So this is the percentage. These are the numbers. So this showed us we were trying to figure out what was going on here. And then obviously at 12 months and then thereafter. Kind of makes you wonder though, this many kiddos around 2 months, what was it that occurred where we were reunifying after 2 months in care where they could go home safely? So something else that we were very interested in kind of finding out.
I've got a question real quick, Megan. One thing that we always kind of try to train to is all the legal like timeline issues, like, you know, no progress on the treatment plan in the last 90 days. You know, do the workers, are they trained pretty regularly on knowing what some of those thresholds are so they can, I don't know, draw that attention to the court? Or I don't know, maybe, I mean, obviously the judge has to understand that. They don't have control over that, but I'm just wondering if they understand the implications of certain timelines.
Yeah, so we have our new worker training that they go through where they do go over those timelines. We have the expectation that supervisors are reviewing these specific kind of timelines with their staff when they're talking about cases. And we also have internal staffings where the district director and the team is present, where we look at months in out-of-home care and think about those timelines. Like, okay, we're at 6 months. The ISP was court ordered at 3 months. We've had 90 days. Have, you know, the parents shown substantial progress on behavior changes and just kind of where we're at. So we do have a lot of checks and balances for staff to assist with making sure we are remembering our timelines of where we need to be to make recommendations and things like that to the court.
All right, cool, good to hear. Thank you.
All right, so another outcome from the court improvement program was the creation of judicial dashboards. So there's one both internally and externally, so internal for DHS and then external for judges and court partners to use. This was, you know, a big piece of this joint project because judges and court partners said, I would like to go in and view where we're at with the measures and what can I do as a judge within my district to improve outcomes. So the judicial dashboard, you can go to okdhs.org. It says judicial dashboard. Anyone can go there and click on it and see what the measures are by region. You can drill down to the region. You can click on the districts and it will take you to where you want to go to look at that. So what are the measures on the judicial dashboard? They're all listed out here. Time from removal to adjudication, that's a big one. So when we're doing PARB and looking at did we make all the recommendations? Did things happen timely? This is a big measure to look at. Time from removal to first permanency hearing, this is something else we look at within PARB, or were hearings held timely? Exiting to permanency, length of time, removal to Caseline Goal change, or to adoption, or so time from removal, when did it change to adoption? Time from the Caseline Goal change from adoption to legally free, so TPR, and then from legally free to exiting to adoption. And then they continue on here. So we have re-entry and then maltreatment in care. So these are the measures that are available for anyone to view on the external judicial dashboard. We've gotten a lot of outreach from some judges trying to figure out how to work the dashboard. So anytime we can do a training opportunity, we're more than happy to. There's a Tulsa judge that we had a call with a couple months ago that really wanted to walk through this and figure out how do I use this? And one thing that was noted on there was the time from removal to adjudication. She was very aware that the percentage looked a little bit different than it did in some of the other regions. And so that was something that she honed in on and wanted to address with reports.
Oh, and I want to give kudos to you all at DHS for putting that together. We talked at probably a year ago now, time flies, but we actually talked about the judicial dashboard at our state PARB board meeting. And I've shared some of this with PARB members, because I really think as we move towards outcomes, these are the data points that we all want to look at. And if we can keep an eye on them and know how they change over time, I kind of have to joke, some of you PARB members have kind of trained your judges in your area. And if you know what your data is, especially in the more rural counties, if you know this information, you can bring it to the attention of child welfare, you can bring it to the attention of the tribal folks, you can bring it to the attention of the judge, district attorney, all the people that you know. I will, when I send this PowerPoint back out, I'll see, and Megan, you may have to help me with it, but I'll see if I can include some kind of link stuff on how to get there. I think I did that in the past, so it shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, just want to say this is significant. It's important. Our members, please pay attention to it.
That's every time Keith asks if I would like to come speak about this to PARB members, I jump at the chance to do so, because PARB has such a presence and a voice with court partners. We see that, PARB recommendations, judges listen, court partners listen. So if I can, give you guys information to help with recommendations to the court, then I am very happy to do so. Okay, so we talked about the court CIP joint project, which I should note, we are doing another joint project. CIP got their 5-year strategic plan. So we're doing another joint project between DHS and CIP, and we actually kick off August. So we'll be reviewing data, looking at court jurisdictions, trying to whittle down to where we would like to go. Ideally, we'd love to see it expand. We were able to do 3 districts last time, and we learned so much from them. Is there a way that we could perhaps expand this next joint project? So we're still kind of in the planning phases of what that would look like. So if you guys get some more information about that, I'll be sure to let Keith know and kind of where we're at and what districts we're looking at. So as you guys are reviewing cases and having conversations, you'll know, okay, hey, they're doing some extra efforts here. So from the CIP data, we kind of talked about the different things that we know contribute to timely permanency. So this is just kind of the conclusion, kind of wrapping it up, resources and best practices to support timely reunification. So these are the research supported practices, reunification within 12 months, and this is around minimizing child trauma. I really want to hit on that, minimizing child trauma, research supported practices. We know from research that these things can help minimize the trauma a child experiences while they're in foster care. So kinship placements, placement changes, again, there it is, siblings together, timely termination of parental rights, timely adjudication, because the more timely the adjudication is, we can get onto the court order treatment plan to get to timely reunification. And then parent-child, I need to change this. It says visitation. It should be family time. That's a whole nother thing our agency is kind of doing, is changing the way that we view visitation and renaming it family time. So the role of family time, correlation to successful reunification and parental engagement, it's an opportunity to observe changes in behaviors, how that parent interacts with that child. And then visitation is a child's right. The most important thing is that it is the child's right to see their family and siblings. I included this in here because if you guys hear about DHS, you might hear that we are a hope-centered agency. We are focusing on hope, giving hope, wanting to be hope dealers. And this all started from a book called Hope Rising by the authors down there. But Dr. Hellman, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to see him speak. He is quite wonderful when he talks about hope and giving hope. I included a quote from the book, and then that continuum up there. That's what we see with our parents when you think about it, giving, I had hope, I lost it. Now I'm rage, angry, then goes to despair, and then hopeless. We're really trying to change the way that our agency and our culture thinks about giving hope to parents, to youth, to children, and to foster parents when we're working with them. This is the hardest thing any of them will do. And so any chance to inspire and give them hope and to help them find their pathways, then our agency, that's what we want to do. So that's just kind of a little plug on that. So change in safety threats. So what does that mean? When you guys are reviewing court reports for the parents' progress and things like that, I hope you're seeing language about behaviors, about their protective capacities, which is how they think, feel, and act. That's what we train our staff. They hear about that when they go through their core. It's their new worker training, their level 1 training. We have ongoing trainings that our staff do. Think, feel, act. So as a parent, I can think that makes my child unsafe. I can feel it. I don't want my child to get hurt. But then it comes down to, can I act on it? Can I do the steps that I need to do to keep my child safe? So I'm really hoping you guys see behavior language, think, feel, act in those court reports and things like that. And those assessments of child safety, that's the big one. That's where we collect all that information, is in that ongoing assessment of child safety. One thing we really train our staff on too is to resist having higher standards for returning the child home than removing the child. And I want to be very careful about this point. This has been in this slide for a while now and has been trained, but we want to make sure our staff aren't setting too high or unrealistic expectations for the family situation and the dynamics. We need to be looking at what was the initial safety threat and what's the current safety threat, if any, and really outlining what the changes were in behaviors to get from point A to point B. And then asking ourselves, how have the safety threats changed, or can they be managed in the home? So what protective capacities has the parent shown to eliminate those safety threats or manage them in the home should the child be returned to them? So safety threats is what we use to gauge when a child is able to go home. We have a threshold. We have to be able to cross the threshold to say that the child is unsafe. And if we cannot cross that threshold, then in our minds, the child is safe, and we need to be putting some plans in place to help support the parent for reunification to occur. So some things to support timely permanency: reviewing the child's status at least every 6 months, 90 days or less when possible. So we see this is pretty common across the state. A lot of courts do the 90 days every 3 months court hearings. And then dismissal may occur after 90 days of child reunification. Some courts and some judges still prefer to do child reunification for the full 6 months. But this is just kind of letting everyone know we can dismiss a case after 90 days. And I should clarify too, when I was talking about timely permanency, children going home, that date is from the date they enter child reunification, not case closure. So otherwise we would have to reunify at 6 months and then close by 12. And unfortunately, some families need a little bit longer time than 6 months. So it's the date they enter TR. Court reviews, what you guys should be seeing in court reports. Again, safety threats, underlying causes, what are the protective capacities? Are the parents changing unsafe behavior through their services? So, parent is going to SOS for drug testing. That doesn't tell us anything. We need more details. Parent is engaged in substance abuse services and is identifying triggers and coping skills. And this is how they're using that to change maybe how they're interacting with their child in family time. So you want to see those details. Are the child's needs being met? So in the child's court section, progress report section, everything about the child too. Child's in counseling. What does that mean? child's in counseling to address X, Y, and Z, and this is how they're using coping skills. We want to see what's in the best interest of the child. So hopefully there's some language there. And then if reunification is the case plan goal, do we have a concurrent case plan goal? What are the other permanency options for the child? So if we don't think reunification is going to occur, everybody's talking about this concurrent goal and what that is. So when reunification efforts fail, which, I struggled with this slide because I don't really like that word fail. It just means that we didn't get to where we wanted to be with the family. When that happens, we have the alternative kind of case plan goals, guardianship, planned alternative permanent placement. So that's for a lot of our youth that we see where maybe there's not someone to look at guardianship with and there's not someone identified for adoption. And then, of course, there's adoption as well. So those, we have 4 case plan goals that we operate with: reunification, guardianship, planned alternative permanent placement, and adoption. And just to add on this too, we can work 2 case plans at one time. So reunification might be our primary case plan goal. Adoption or guardianship might be our concurrent goal. And we're talking about both when we have family meetings and also in court reviews and things like that. Okay, so that's the end of the PowerPoint. What questions do you guys have?
Thanks for that overview, and it's nice to hear kind of what you guys are kind of looking at on permanency. And of course, it's always want to try to look through a PARP lens, and what are certain areas that we can, as PARP members, kind of identify to be helpful. And so, I think reminding, a lot of things come to mind, especially around the timeliness, time to adjudication, any kind of court barriers that we can draw attention to. I don't know, there's too many to name, but these are just really good triggers to kind of think through.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mentioned, we learned a lot from that joint project that we implemented in our current strategies. So in many of the regions and districts across the state, we have the family meeting continuum. So if you're reviewing a case and you're like, oh my gosh, they're having family meetings every 60 days, like what's going on here? It's because from the CIP joint project, we learned that frequent family meetings with all parties at the table really, it really helped achieve timely permanency. And so that's an effort that we've done, many other different ones, but just kind of something that you might see in these cases as you review.
It's good to know. And the OCSA stuff too, I'm glad to hear that it's independent and it's being bolstered. I don't have any scientific data on it, but the impression I get is OCSA is a great service, but it's totally underutilized. And then again, kind of the way that it was structured with kind of different workers being assigned before, that seemed like to me that was not working that great. So I'm glad to hear that it's independent now and being bolstered. It's great.
Yeah, and there's other strategies. There's a whole unit that's designated and has strategies for those youth that are PAP, that's their case plan goal, or adoption, and we just don't really have anything kind of set in place. So we're really trying to designate resources and specific programs to focus on all different groups of kiddos.
Good deal. All right, Jonette.
Yes, at the beginning of the presentation, when we had the information of the 16 to 18-year-old exits, and the presentation had different months, not the same ones that we could compare. Is it possible that you could get those and send them to us?
Let me pull it up and just make sure I'm understanding real quick. Okay, so this screen right here, it's the exit reasons. Was it the pie chart or was it this one? They're the same.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is a run date.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
this is a 6-month period. So this was, let me get my math, March of 2019 to October, I'm sorry, March of 20 to October of 20. And then we went to our next 6-month period. So it's not just 1 month, it's a 6-month period that should be a continuum of time. So this is giving
Okay,
you a snapshot over time.
yeah, and I think it was one of those other, not the pie chart, but the linear information.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
This one?
Those are not the same months comparison.
Right,
So
it's the 6 months of the 1A period and the 6 month of the 1B period that makes up the full, is it federal reporting period? So it's not the same months, it's the 2 months, the 2 6-month periods that equals 1 federal fiscal year.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so you're looking at data combined, you're looking at data from March of 2020 to the end of April of 2021. So almost a whole year.
Yeah, but there's nothing to compare it to for that same dates.
So they report it in the Pinnacle plan like this because this is how the co-neutrals wanted it and comparing the 2 6-month period.
What I could do is I'll have to dig through, but I could probably look and see even earlier than that. This April of 21, this is our most current data that we have, but we have this data going back years.
Yeah.
So that's something I could definitely get my hands on.
Hey, Megan, how much have you guys run into issues with guardianship and the misconceptions being put like in the FCAO groups and that kind of stuff impacting guardianships?
So I actually got to talk with Sarah Harrion, who is involved with FCAO, and we did a whole online training, kind of a frequently asked questions with foster parents about guardianships. I think slowly but surely we're getting there. We're changing just kind of the overall perception of guardianship. One of the big kind of pieces that really helped us was that Dr. Shropshire and everyone else said, if we're asking foster parents to take guardianship and we're only paying them a fraction of the cost of what they would get as opposed to an adoption subsidy, that's not, really helping us. So now if they do guardianship, foster parents get the same amount of subsidy as they would if they adopted.
Is it on both types of funded guardianships is the same or are they different?
It's for TANF, 4E, and state funds. They get the same amount.
Okay, awesome.
They also get a post-adoptions worker. So now all guardianship cases go to post-adoptions for support. So we're really trying to make it equal. And for guardianship, they also get OXA benefits as well, just like they would with an adoption. So we have a whole pamphlet if you guys are interested in that. It's a
Megan, can you send that to me? Because we talked about a kid and if they were eligible for OXA or not because they had gone home into TR. TR you can't, right? But guardianship you can. Is that how?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's called Planning for Permanency, and it's a comparison chart on all the benefits that you would get adoption versus guardianship and the different 3 funding types for guardianship.
Well, send that to me too, of course. Man.
Of course. What other questions?
All right. Well, hearing none here, thanks again for doing this, Megan, and being such a great partner. And it's so nice to hear that, someone's your level within DHS state office and your goals and are so lined up with what our goals are as well. We're definitely part of the same choir. So that's good.
Absolutely. My email address is my name. It's Maghan.Ruark@okdhs.org. If anyone has any questions or anything, I'm always here to help and happy to do so.
Okay. All right, well, with that, I will go ahead and finish the.
You went on mute. Okay. We good?